I never really thank you for discovering an illegally placed GPS tracking device in my car in May of 2018. It was that day, Jeff. It was that day that my world collapsed. I don't know if you recall, but I myself lost my entire energy. And I said, wow, it's really happening. And that is also an abuse. Someone that doesn't respect your boundaries. I had cameras in my house, installed in my own house, without my knowledge and consent. Jeff found the cameras. He entered the house and he found the cameras. And I had no idea that I was being filmed. I had a GPS tracking device. I had people following me, and a phone call to Jeff, I confronted the person. I literally ended up following the person, and the person was following me 80 miles an hour on the small little streets of Coconut Grove. I called Jeff and I said, run this license plate. And he says, Luciana, she is very green. She does not know what she's doing. She's not even licensed, right? She's not formally licensed or something, right?
Well, the first thing we did was run the tag of the individual, and we went to the Florida Department of Agriculture website because they are the ones that govern private investigators. And as soon as we put her name in there, she came up as an intern private investigator, where she could actually not only lose her license, she could be arrested for that. Miami is not just known for its beautiful beaches and nightlife and cultures from all over the world. It's also known for its hot and steamy relationships. In this season, we bring you the Scorned Women of Miami. Women who have hired Gotham Investigations to investigate their spouses which have brought them to their knees, and not just in a sexual way. They've attempted to take their life away in such a horrific way. Gotham Investigations has introduced them to some of the top divorce attorneys in the field, as well as civil litigation attorneys, and brought them from defeat to victory. Stay tuned while you hear some of our stories. Welcome to Gotham Investigations. I'm your host, Jeff Giordano. A famous British novelist once said, "For a woman to think she is equal to a man is foolish." Women are far greater than men. They always will, and they will always be greater than men. Whatever you give them, they make it greater. If you give them sperm, they will give you a child. If you give them groceries, they will give you a meal. If you give them a house, they will give you a home. Whatever you give a woman, she multiplies it and makes it much greater. So whenever you give a woman crap, be prepared, because they are going to give you a world of shit. And we have a special guest on our show today, and she was one of those women who will not give up. She hired Gotham Investigations to investigate her spouse, and she's going to take you on a journey that every woman should know not to give up. This is a woman who came from a high standing in her community, a wonderful neighborhood in a high-end community, brought to dirt level, brought to the ground, and she would not give up. And this is her story on how she went from the ground, from a man, to coming back to the top and being a winner once again.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. And I really wanted to thank you for the opportunity to realize one of my life projects. And I think this is the most important one, a very, very crucial in today's days, because I was in a abusive relationship and very well established in my career. You would think that someone smart with education would see it. But unfortunately, I didn't. And if I had known what to look for, the signs of it, I think that, and also if I have maybe a support system, right? I think I would probably, it would be less damaging than what it was, you know? There's so much that I think needs to change in family court. And my ultimate goal is actually to create a law that would make the parties, being a paternity case, which was my case, I was not married, or a divorce case in family court, that the judge immediately order psychological evaluation for both parents. So I don't know, maybe you're gonna help me with that, as far as like guide me, tell me where to go, because I took the first step because of you to initiate this movement.
Well, part of what we do here at Gotham Investigations is not just take a case and investigate. We become, personally involved with our clients, and we try to better them and help them any way we can. We have a great team of divorce attorneys, civil litigation attorneys, and in this case, what you're saying, that's where it starts. People like you that want to go out there and change the law. We do know several state representatives that actually that's what they do. They're in Tallahassee proposing laws and making change. Mm-hmm. So for sure, I would be happy to introduce you to one of those state representatives and see if you could introduce this to them and throw out that idea. I mean, that's how things start. This is it's like you can't start a village without that one person that plants the seed.
Yeah, I never really want to do anything by myself. I really believe in team effort, and united we can do more, right?
So when you talk about abuse in your child, what kind of abuse were you faced with where you realized you have to leave, you have to get out of this relationship?
That's a really great question, because a lot of women think that abuse is just when a man physically assaults her, right? But there's many kinds of abuse. There is emotional abuse, there is sexual abuse, there is physical abuse, and you do not know that you are in an emotionally abusive relationship until you're out of it. I actually never really thank you I hired Jeff, and if you are in a very contentious family court case, I strongly recommend having a private investigator, because the judge, we only look to the facts, right? And you want to be the one wearing the white hat. So if the other party is doing something that will bring some leverage to your case, that's exactly what you need, someone like Jeff. And I never really thank you for discovering an illegally placed GPS tracking device in my car in May of 2018. It was that day, Jeff. It was that day that my world collapsed. I don't know if you recall, but I myself lost my entire energy. And I said, wow, it's really happening. And that is also an abuse. Someone that doesn't respect your boundaries. I had cameras in my house, installed in my own house, without my knowledge and consent. Jeff found the cameras. He entered the house and he found the cameras. And I had no idea that I was being filmed. I had a GPS tracking device. I had people following me, and a phone call to Jeff, I confronted the person. I literally ended up following the person, and the person was following me 80 miles an hour on the small little streets of Coconut Grove. I called Jeff and I said, run this license plate. And he says, Luciana, she is very green. She does not know what she's doing. She's not even licensed, right? She's not formally licensed or something, right?
Well, one of the first thing we did was run the tag of the individual, and we went to the Florida Department of Agriculture website, because they are the ones that govern private investigators. And as soon as we put her name in there, she came up as an intern private investigator, where she could actually not only lose her license, she could be arrested for that. We can put trackers, say in husband and wife cases, when the vehicle might be in both their names and we get consent from one of the spouses. But in this case, the vehicle was in your name.
Right.
So when we found out that this individual was an intern, we immediately said, stay where you're at, we'll be right there. and we conducted a search of your vehicle, and we found a tracker underneath. And then from there, we called the police department, and we had it documented, and we turned in the device. And sure, that was a lot of ammunition for your attorney. And
a lot of ammunition from my attorney. Yeah.
I remember you were horrified. You started crying. You were so scared.
Yeah.
Because you're being violated from the cameras in your
Yep.
house to your vehicle. You had no life. You had no one to turn to. As you're saying, you didn't have a support system, and you were out there all alone, feeling that you didn't have any resources.
So there is a very interesting graph. It's a chart that explains what is the wheels of abuse. It is a cycle, and it goes sort of like this. You meet the individual, and that person is so charming. He's very, very interested in learning about you, asking questions, and you're like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want. I feel like I am so appreciative, and loved, and then there is a conflict, right? And usually the conflict is because they have a low self-esteem, right? And there is a condition that calls narcissist personality disorder. And the interesting part of this condition is that I have talked to few girlfriends that is going through or went through the same situation, in which when they tell me what's going on, I said, hold on a second, you are in an abusive relationship. And does he do this? And she's like, yeah. Does he do that? Yeah. And I'm gonna list a couple of things, right? Does he belittle you? Does he put you down? And mind, that whole interview that happens in the beginning, that you feel so open, he's actually getting on points that will press your buttons and break you. That's what he's doing during that phase, right? So he uses all of that information whenever he feels insecure. And by hurting you, hurting your feelings, putting you down, talking bad about your girlfriends so your girlfriends don't feel comfortable to come to you, this is all part of the abuse, because now you're alone. You have no one to talk, no one to open your eyes, and the abuse continues. I had dinners in my house the last year of relationship that last 90 minutes. And let me tell you something, it is not a dialogue, it is a monologue. Because nothing that you say to a narcissist will actually change the narcissist. As a matter of fact, speaking and engaging is what they want. They need a source of supply to feel good about themselves. So I won 2 awards one time, and he kept on not allowing me to, pushing back on a matter, right? I was breastfeeding. I was representing the largest bank in South America, Banco do Brasil. I was opening 5 bank branches and working and breastfeeding. I wanted an office at home, and I wanted to, add my frames. Until one day that I'm like, what the heck? What is the problem? Why are you not letting me do it? Like, I blow up. And he says, like, I don't understand why you even got awards. You don't even work hard. So when you feel that you are being belittled and broke, it's like breaking a horse. He broke me. So the wheels, going back to the wheels of abuse, things are great, right? And then there's that conflict. And for a person like me, I consider myself a strong person, right? I'm like, something's not right. Let me start thinking about my plan, my exit plan, right? And the reason why I stayed in a relationship for so long, it was because of my son. I thought I had to be in that relationship because of my son. Okay, I can take it. Bring it on. Until I realized that I needed to be wholesome to take care of my son. So that's when I create the courage to even think about leaving. And every time there were signs that I was moving to that, things turn around and things get great, and he makes me believe that I'm leaving a great situation, and he turned the tables around. And then at the end, I am feeling guilty and it is a brainwash. He repeats something so many times that it gets in your head in a way that you believe that it is the truth. I was having anxiety. The other thing too, if you are feeling that emotionally you are changing, such as you recognize that you're having anxiety, or that your mind is foggy, that you are unable to make like the simplest decision, I would recommend getting either something natural or medicine to help you, because you're gonna need help. It takes a lot of resilience to get out of a relationship like that. And I really thank you, Jeff, because if I had not seen that GPS in my car, I probably would just like go with the flow until the next cycle.
So when you finally decided to end it, I remember there was even a incident in the Turcos, was it?
Right.
That kind of left you stunned, and not only that, you couldn't get any help because there was a jurisdictional problem, and
Right.
nobody would take it serious there as well.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So one of the things that the narcissists do really well, they have no empathy, and they are very good about doing things in a way that's very well calculated. They have no emotions. So basically, he was planning this for about a year when I found out that he was cheating on me, and my nanny said that I would, tell people that he was committing tax evasion, and I had documentations to prove. So I think that he felt attacked, and he decided that he would attack. But he attacked in a way that was so canive. It was a year of planning. So basically, he took me to, the relationship wasn't good. And then in April, he filed for paternity, meaning when you, in the state of Florida, you are not a father unless you are married, or that you establish paternity in court. And how can you do that? The mother has to say, yes, I had intercourse and my son is his son. Or the father does a, how do you say, a DNA test.
Yeah.
DNA test. So he did that. He filed for paternity, and we had already 2 trips scheduled. One of them was Turks and Caicos for his birthday, and as a mother, I would get to look very excited about the trip. We're still...
Is your son?
Yes. I would tell him that we would go to a nice beach and we're going to play. And it was like my moment with him, right? I was working until 6 o'clock, and my time with him, it was only between 6 and 9, right? Where I would put him to bed every night. So basically, I felt he filed for paternity, and I sent him a letter. I said, because you filed for paternity, I would like you to respect my boundaries. We are going to this trip because I don't want to let my son down. But I would like to stay in separate. And he said, oh yeah, fine. So we get there, and we have a pizza downstairs. My son, I asked for a glass of wine, Jose wine. And my son just throw it on the floor. So I got another one, and I drink one, and I drink another. He had 2 glasses of champagne with Kir Royale or whatever. So we both had 2 drinks each, and we ate. I get in a hotel, and I noticed that there was a bottle of red wine open. And I said, why do you have a red wine open? And why a red wine? You don't even like red wine. And he's like, relax, I know you're thirsty. I noticed something wrong, so I start recording. And apparently in Turks and Caicos, that is not a crime to record someone without their consent. But I felt really like the energy was a dark energy in that place, And I relaxed a little bit after. Louis made me laugh, and I was giving him a shower. And I had a sip of the wine, and I don't remember anything else after that. I love to drink my scotch. Have you ever seen me intoxicated?
No.
Okay.
But then again, I never seen you on a level other than, investigating cases, showing you
Right.
different things.
Right. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, okay? It doesn't happen like... I had the power to put him in jail. He hit me at my son's school, and my attorney put the school on notice, and we subpoenaed the school. We got the video, and it was there, right? And I had the ability of putting him in jail, but it's my son. It's my dad's son. It's the son of my dad, my son's dad. Just I'm not that type of person. I may bark, but I don't bite. You know what I mean? Especially for something like this, that's family. So basically, he did drug me that day, and he had sex with me while I was unconscious. And when I noticed that there was something really wrong the next day, he asked me if I take my birth control, and I'm like, why would I take my birth control? Well, we had sex last night. And I'm like, okay. And I went to look in the mirror. My eye was hurting. My eye was blue. I don't know what happened. And then after that, I called my attorney. And my attorney said, well, just get on the next flight. And I went to look for my passports. He removed the passports from the safe. So it's a really scary situation, that you were in. And when I got back, I did a panel, like with the test, like a bunch of substance. And it would get alcohol if it was at a higher level. And it didn't have any alcohol in it. But, later on, we found out that he made a video of me naked, completely out of it. And I showed that to some professionals, and they're like, you're not slurring, you're not drunk, you're drugged. And so, unfortunately, the drug only stays on your system for 48 hours. And I had 3 days. I did the test 3 days after. But that proves that video, I was not intoxicated with alcohol. I was definitely intoxicated with something else, right? They're capable of everything because the narcissists, all they want is to win. There's nothing worse for them to be seen in the community or by the public with the bad eye, right? So if you're dealing with one, you need someone to really get what they don't want to show. Because Jeff was able to get pictures of him doing things that it wasn't really kosher, right?
Even though Florida's a no-fault state, pictures of them with other women doing things in front of a child. These are things that could be used, and also even if they're not, and you bring it in front of a judge, it says a lot about the person's character. So you go from living in a prominent neighborhood, driving a fantastic car. I think you had a Porsche. Was it? You leave. At that point, you get back to the U.S., you decide enough is enough.
Yeah, so...
Where do you go from there?
So when I leave, and he was seeing everything in the cameras, right? He was watching everything from Geneva. And by the way, there was this next trip to Geneva that I said, you know what, this is my chance to actually stay here. Without Louis, with a young child, it's hard to do certain things, right? So I'll let him go. But I wanted to have an agreement in court, filed in court, which is an order, a travel order, that stipulates all the things that needs to happen, like the dates that he returns, and if I leave the house, I would have the right to have my son for a period of time because it's sort of like a makeup day, right? So basically, he saw me leaving the house, and what did he do? He started filing motions. And the first motion that I read was a motion that he filed for supervised visitations because I have an alcohol problem. And so that was the theme. He wanted to paint me as someone that had a bad relationship with alcohol. you know?
But just to be clear, you don't have an alcohol problem.
No, I don't.
This is something that he created, and this is something that he presented with his attorney to go after you, to try to bring you to the ground and take away the child
Yeah,
for good.
exactly.
And part of that is controlling you. Because
Right.
if he has your child, then he has total control of you. And sooner or later, you're going to either give in and go back with him to be with your child, or you'll do something devastating or crazy.
Yeah.
But in this case, you leave, and he comes up with this nonsense, obviously.
Yeah.
And how much attorney's fees did it cost you from start to, you're still dealing with this
Yeah.
at this point?
So then I hire a more aggressive attorney when I saw all those motions, right? I just hire a more aggressive attorney because at this point, my son was scheduled to be in Miami on July 28th. And I wanted to know when I can get my son because per the agreement, as soon as I leave the house, I have those 5 days, right? He just disappeared. I had no idea where my son was for 28 days. And it breaks my heart because Louis remembers those and he is angry at me because I left him.
Now, I remember you say that the emotional abuse, this just didn't end with you. It was taken to Louis, your son, after. So those days were not just going to parks and having fun. Those were to mentally prepare, the child of being aggressive towards you. Can you explain how that started and actions that your son started taking and behavioral effects that you noticed changes in him?
Yeah, it was very concerning because there were crises in which he would cry, crying, and just crawl in his little car and like in state of depression, And to these days, certain times I see pain in his eyes, and how it happens. I mean, his father says that I have a bad relationship with him, right? And blames me for having a bad relationship with him. And God knows what the cause is, but I do have a suspicion that at that age, at 2.5 years old, when you are in a strange place, apparently he was in a hotel room, in a strange place without seeing your mom, that must be traumatic, right? So I fought a lot for therapy, and he's doing therapy, and hopefully that will be, that will help him. But there's nothing, until I realized that there's nothing more powerful than love. That's when I felt free and more hope, because that's the only thing I have control, is how much I can love my son. I don't have control of anything. I don't have control of the court, my attorneys, the father, nothing.
And your son, he started to get hatred towards you whenever he would come back from a visitation with the father?
Yes.
Can you explain some of that hatred and violence? And I remember you even said one time he had picked up a weapon of some sort.
So my personality...
He's how old now? Like 6 years old now?
He's 7 years old now.
7 years old, okay.
I have a very bubbly personality, which is very different than his father. Some people that had met him said that he has a dark side. And it's like very lifeless, right? So when he comes back from his dad's house, those first moments, 1 or 2 days, depending on how long he stayed with his father, that's exactly how he behaves. He behaves lifeless, and then the fact that you have...
When you say lifeless, can you explain that a little bit? What that
lifeless
looks like from an eyes of a viewer.
Let's go to the park. Let's go to Frost Museum. No. I called Nicholas. His mom said that we can play in the park. No, I don't want to go. I bought this for you, your favorite cookie, and this and this and this. What do you want to eat? I don't want to eat anything. I don't like anything. He makes it really hard for me. It's almost like he's punishing me.
And how many days does that last after he comes back?
Like this last time, he was with his father for 10 days for the winter vacation, and he took like a good 6 days with that funk. But it progressively gets better.
Deteriorates and gets better.
It gets better. It gets better. Yeah.
So obviously he's under some emotional and mental abuse when he's with the father. To try to make him go against you type of thing.
Yeah, I think so, because he couldn't destroy me the way he wanted to destroy me, right? So it's sad, but, I really think that some people are evil enough and they don't think about the child. They only think about themselves. They do everything to win.
So the emotional abuse that you went through, now you see the emotional abuse of the child. You went from a prominent neighborhood, driving a Porsche, not to say that, vehicles make you prominent, but it was the lifestyle you were living. You make a decision, you move out, now you're still getting this mental abuse, but it's mental abuse observing your child going through this and his regression away from the mother. This brought you to bankruptcy, correct?
Yes. It was very, very hard for me, the idea of bankruptcy, because I don't know, I never really liked the fact that, you spend your money and then you are forgiven. But strategically speaking, because he was after me for $800, he filed motions for fees saying that I owe him $400,000 in attorney fees. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, where is mine? Because we spend the same thing, right? So my wonderful attorney, who is an amazing person, I had a bill for $25,000, and he says to me, Luciana, the best thing for you is to file for bankruptcy. All these bills that are pending, and that's against his own interest, right?
No, correct. I mean,
right?
It's not in his interest, but you spent a few $100,000 in attorney's fees, obviously, to the point where you had to go bankrupt.
Yeah, I was receiving $99,000 bills every month. So
it's just insanity of what divorces cost when you have an aggressor on the other side and you can't come to a mutual agreement.
Right.
And that individual also has money and he's just trying to take you down. So.
And I try to find the money, but he hid the money, and it would cost me $200,000 to continue with forensic accountants. And people told me, don't go for it. Don't just leave.
So you can imagine, women that don't have financial support or don't have family that have money and are going through this abuse, or might have a husband that has a little money that can afford an attorney to do these motions. But it even got to a point where you started aggressively filing your own motions because you said, the hell with this. I'm a woman, and I know what I want. I want my child, and I'm not going to let bankruptcy and no attorney wanting to get you as a retainer because they think that they're not going to get paid. So you started aggressively filing back at him your own motions, and you kind of became your own attorney at some point.
It was very normal. For 4 years, I was studying my case until 3, 4 a.m. And I always wanted to continue to give my son some comfort and a good place to live. So every time my landlord would raise my rent, I would move within the same building, just so my son would not feel the difference, right? I moved 5 times in 5 years. So anyhow, the years of 2019 and 2020 were very, very hard for me because I am on a commission-based. If I don't work, I don't produce, and I don't make any money. So I never really knew how I would pay my expenses in the next month.
So just to commission base, you're a commercial real estate attorney, correct?
I'm a commercial real estate now broker. I opened my own company now last year.
So anyone that could help you out, out there viewing or listening in the Miami area, or you're looking to buy a property or business in the Miami area, Luciana is your one to go with.
Thank you.
She's getting back on her feet, and her family, her friends, her investigator, everybody is proud at her of how she's changing her life around.
Thank you. And it's time to give back. So, in November of 2020, I had $20 in my bank account. And that's when I filed for bankruptcy. And it was hard because before that, my credit was like 860. But a year and a half later, I'm in the 700s, So, while I was leaving this very difficult time, and I cry very little, right? I was just telling Jeff here before the interview that I never lost hope. And I think that that's very important when you go through some tough times. Never lose hope. And I always take the positive attitude, see life like this is a gift. I always saw this as a gift. And one day I did cry, right? And I said, God, why me? Why this is happening? In November of 2020, I had $20 in my bank account. And that's when I filed for bankruptcy. And it was hard because before that, my credit was like 860. But a year and a half later, I'm in the 700s, So, while I was leaving this very difficult time, and I cry very little, right? I was just telling Jeff here before the interview that I never lost hope. And I think that that's very important when you go through some tough times. Never lose hope. And I always take the positive attitude, see life like this is a gift. I always saw this as a gift. And one day I did cry, right? And I said, God, why me? Why this is happening to me? And then a light bulb went on, and I realized that this was happening to me, so I would be the voice to bring the awareness to so many women that are in this prison without even knowing. They're suffering from depression, they're suffering from anxiety, and they don't know why, right? And it takes a lot of resilience. My alcohol evaluator told me it takes a lot of resilience to be out of a relationship to that extent. I mean, he walked into the alcohol evaluation meeting with a dossier of 200 pages.
And what were in those pages?
Make up story about me, find a picture that's a little funnier, and create a story. Going back to what you said, so towards the end that I had no money, and it was at the end of my discharge of bankruptcy, I had no money to pay attorneys. So what I did, I was on food stamps. I studied the Social Security Act, which has to do with Title IV, that protects, that has a program, the child support program. And that's very interesting that you said that, what kind of support do you get from women that was in a situation like me? I look for it. I look for people that would do a pro bono work. I look for organizations that help women that was under this situation. But guess what? Only if they are indulgent without a home or etc. That's when you can use those services, right? So part of my, when the light bulb went up, I said, I am going to be a voice. And this is my first step to my life project, to create, a program of awareness, support, and healing. Because it's only when you have knowledge that you can heal. I started learning about this condition, and everything started making sense. And it's incredible, Jeff. They are exactly the same. You talk to a friend of mine that's in the same situation, and my ex, all the things that they do, it's exactly the same. It's a disease. It's a disease.
A disease as far as a controlling issue?
Yes, manipulation, controlling, being able to manipulate you to a point where you doubt yourself. There's feelings of guilt. All of those feelings are low frequency. They're dark. Guilt is one of the worst ones. So he just brainwashed you and gaslighting you to believe that you are what he's telling you.
So now it seems like you're getting your life back together off the ground. You said you just got a beautiful another condo that you're renting there on, which is a beautiful neighborhood. Where do you stand with? Do you have communication with the father of your child now at all?
So one of the ways to protect yourself is to not. It's to have no contact, right? So I fought in court to keep using an app, our family wizard, and this app can be viewed by the judge. So in essence, is supposed to keep you low on the abuse and the belittling and the names and all of that. But, it doesn't work really well. I mean, I send messages to him that's like 2 lines and I get a book, And it's sad because he picked a law, which is, he learned about this law, which is the Hague Convention, right? The Hague is a...
Hague, H-A-G?
Yeah, Hague. So the Hague Convention get countries to become part of this Hague Convention, and there are a set of rules that they have to follow. And unfortunately, my country is a little messy, and if a child is abducted, it takes some time to find the child, just because my country, Brazil, does not comply with these laws, right? So he found that law and he added to the agreement, and that's his way to keep controlling me. And it's sad because at this point, does not have any contact with his maternal family. He can go to Belgium, and see his paternal family, but he cannot go to Brazil. And he wants to go. And so when I ask, I took...
So you mean he can go to his father's home country,
Yeah.
but he can't go to your home country,
Right.
because of that law.
Because of that law. And I asked him in July, because I took Louis to Portugal, so he gets to feel the culture, because we are from Portugal, right? Descendants to Portugal. And a dear friend of mine, since we were little, that was there with the little kid, and Louis was just in love with everything. And he says, "Mommy, why I cannot go?" And I'm like, "Louis, let's ask Dad. Let's ask Dad." And I said, "Would you give consent so Louis can go to visit his family in Brazil doing New Year's?" And you should see the chapter that I received. Like, I cannot even read everything he writes because it's just so... It's just like, okay, so you're doing this to your kid? You're doing this to your kid. You realize you're doing this to your kid, right? But you think that you're exerting some control over me, and that's what gives you pleasure. It's sad. It is sad.
It's actually kind of fascinating that you brought up that law, because from the beginning I didn't understand it, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers didn't understand it until you mentioned, and then we were like, well, why can't you go to Brazil? And he says because they don't adhere to that, laws or policies, and it just so happens you're lucky enough to come from that country, and that's your roots, that's your heritage, that's where you're from, that's where your family is, and you can't take your son there, and he can't, see the culture that his mom has and be with his maternal grandmother, I guess, your mother out there, or any sisters or family or aunts or anything, unless they come here. I mean, that does kind of show you the evilness and cruelty behind, these relationships, and how hard knocks they can get to one another just to stop somebody from doing something.
Yeah.
To control you. In the long run, it's all about
exactly.
control.
It's all about controlling. They get a kick out of it.
So where are you at today with your son? Is he going to a private school, a public school?
That was the other thing, too. His father violated my parental rights, because at the time we had 50-50 parental responsibility, and I had the right to also choose my son's school, or at least have a conversation about which school we're going to put our son. He went ahead and he enrolled my son in a school. It's a great school. However, he chose the French program, which is very convenient, right? So you speak French, your son is learning French. He has no contact with his family in Brazil. And I did not get to choose the language, because Louis did enter into a school. When I found out that he violated my parental rights, I right away enrolled Louis. And he actually got into that had a program in Portuguese. So it's...
Do you get any child support on his end? Any support system from him?
Yes, very little, because our incomes in 2017 were pretty close to each other. So there's not really much with the 50-50. So what some parents do, some fathers do, or whoever has more money, they fight to have custody so they don't pay child support to the wife, because the child support is calculated based on a formula that you have to input the time sharing. So if you spend more time with your kid, you pay less, right? For whoever has more money. So yeah, it's just a small amount, really.
And we
Peanuts.
find that in so many, not only divorce cases, but maternity cases, that the father really don't care much about the child. When we do these surveillances and we see them with the child, they usually bring a nanny or somebody where else, but they just do this because they want to pay less.
Right.
And that's their whole fight for the child. It's not that they want the child or they want to be with the child, unfortunately. Some do. Some dads are great and they just want to, be a great father, but others are just in it not just for the fight, but the fight to have control over the spouse or the mother of the child.
Right.
Before they do this.
And when we talk about NPD, right, narcissist personality disorder, I mean, this could happen the other way around. It could be a woman bringing her husband down. And some man, I know because I enter a group and I met 2 guys that were suffering from that. So it happens. And this could happen between parents. Like maybe you have a mother that's a narcissist, or you have a father that you saw for growing up that was a narcissist that always wanted to compete with you, feel better, la la la. So it could be your boss, it could be a coworker, it could be, your boyfriend. So, my suggestion is read about the topic. There's so much on the internet, YouTube, read articles, and really, I think that knowledge and love are the most important things, and no one can take it away from you. So get yourself educated on the matter, because you're going to start feeling like, okay, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. I am in it.
And you certainly were in it, and you stayed in it to win it. and now you're bringing yourself back to society, back to having normal friends, and back to having a life.
I always said that challenge makes outstanding individuals.
It does. It does.
So,
well, we certainly glad to have you on our show, and we hope that many women out there and men that are watching this, that it gives them a roadmap to success. That just because sometimes it takes bringing you to the bottom level of the depths of the earth before you realize the only way up is bringing myself up. Not having anybody is not going to be there for me. I need to do this myself. Yep. I need to do this for my child. And most of all, once you see that you have to have respect for yourself, that's what motivates you, and that's what gives you the inner strength to go on.
And also, I have to say that having a support system, Jeff was an amazing support system, because not only he's very capable and professional in what he does, but he has a great heart. And, at moments in which I felt, without knowing what to do, I would call him and he would kind of help me think, right? And so you have a support system. That's very, very important.
Well, appreciate it, and wish you best in your business.
Thank you.
Endeavors, and hopefully...
That's a nice scarf over there.
Oh,
what is it?
Actually, we are going to be coming out with a line of scarves on Gotham Investigations.
Oh, that's
And you
awesome.
can find that on our website, gothaminvestigations.us. Until our next episode, stay tuned for our next story and our next journey of this season of Scorned Women of Miami. Are you a fan of our show? Do you like our show? Then comment, hit the like button, and subscribe, or you might be the next one we investigate.